Shut up and sit down.
Alright guys, I'm Dodge.
I'm Andy.
I'm Mark.
And again, we've got Mark with us from Core.
Hello.
And today's video is all about the fluff from your game, because we're not going to get too far into the mechanics till part 3.
Okay.
And then Mark's bringing out the big boys at that point.
So what's this game called?
We've got a couple of game systems we're working on set in the same universe, in the core world, and the first one is called Kaiju, which is, strangely enough, all about Kaiju. There's a massive genre about huge beasts, because Kaiju just means strange monster, essentially in Japanese. So you've got Godzilla, you've even got the latest Independence Day movies, you've got Kong, all that kind of stuff are essentially Kaiju movies. And at the moment, there isn't really a game out there, a war game, which captures the whole feel of my 200-foot tall lizard trashing your entire city while robots throw themselves at it. Yeah. There just isn't one, so we thought we'd make one.
Okay. So you're looking very sort of a Pacific Rim sort of idea.
Yeah, it's got a real Pacific Rim type vibe going to it. It's set in the core world. The core world is this Earth, 2080s, and it's very, very cyberpunk. Yeah. Technology has just gone absolutely crazy, but genetic engineering can make the perfect humans and upgrade them cybernetically. If you've got the money, if you're part of the first world, you're probably jacked. You've probably got cyber implants. You connect to the net mentally with your mind. So the whole feel of it is a very cyberpunk, cutting-edge, chrome world into which the Kaiju have stepped and are busy trashing cities like they were made out of Lego.
Yep, I've seen some of these models. I can't tell you too much till part 3 as well, but some of these Kaiju models are looking very tasty.
Well, let's face it, big stumpy monsters.
We love big stumpy monsters. But to me, I've been watching a lot of Kaiju movies recently, and one of the things about Kaiju movies that I love is when they pick up cars and they're throwing buses and cars at each other. They've got hold of a boat, they're using the boat as a baseball bat as they whack into the opposing monsters, and the opposing robots and stuff like that. So there's two iconic images to me, and that is the Kaiju themselves, which is huge monsters, and the mecha, or the robots they're up against. Now, in the Kaiju game that we're writing, they're called Templars, which are this old medieval world for like a guardian. Templars are hundreds of feet high, huge robots, powered by a Miko generator, which gives them the power to actually mobilise. The pilots are plugged into a womb, a bio womb, which then allows them to pilot the Templar as if it was an extension of their body. They become the Templar, as it were, which is a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is it becomes them. They can run, they can walk, they can jump, they can fight. The bad thing is they take the hits from the Kaiju, and they will take hits. The pilot inside actually feels as if he was taking the beat down from their 200-foot tall giant Tyrannosaurus lizard beast.
So tell us more about this Miko generator, because when we were off camera you were going into a bit more detail on what this generator is.
Well, the idea is, in the future world, humanity has developed clean energy, if you can afford it. It's not for everyone, because obviously some people can't afford the clean energy. So Miko generators essentially are a way they've found to tap into power which is limitless. They can power whole cities from Miko generators. They can pilot 200-foot tall robots from these Miko generators. Ships and aircraft, dead easy. They can even make cars fly. The idea is the Miko generator gives off several types of radiation depending on how you set it up, and one of those types of radiation has got an anti-gravitic properties. So you get cars like this one, which I don't know if you can actually see that up close there, but that is a flying police car. Very high-tech, sleek-looking, wouldn't look amiss in Blade Runner. No. Totally cyberpunk. This thing's an absolute beast.
It also wouldn't look amiss if you wanted to convert that up and just stick some tracks or wheels to the side of it as well. There's a lot you can do with that design.
Yep. It could be either a flying car or a grav car. So you can have a low, something which hovers along the ground. But in our setting, this thing flies. You're talking about, this thing will go Mach 1 up to 40,000 feet. So it's essentially an aircraft, but it's a car. Flying car. We've got a few different example ones here, because in the core world, if you can afford it, you buy a flying car. If you can't afford it, or you're just old-fashioned, you buy a ground car. Both exist, and both will be part of the Kaiju game, because you can imagine the cars buzzing about, try to get out of the way as this giant robot wakes its way through the city, try to fight off the invading Kaiju. And, if you're piloting a car at Mach 6 through the city centre, you're going to have to get out of the way pretty quickly.
Okay, so where are these big monsters from?
Well, the idea is humanity's not quite sure where they come from or why they're here at this point. But all they know is every time humans start to develop a city and become high tech and they put lots of defences and stuff, 9 times out of 10, a kaiju turns up and gives them a stomping. So something's definitely attracting them. Now, most of humanity seems to believe that the kaiju are guided by someone or something. There's an intelligence out there that has shown the kaiju where to go and where to strike, because the strikes are too precise. So you've got the battle for Neo Tokyo. Neo Tokyo was a showcase of modern humanity. There were skyscrapers thousands of feet tall into the sky. Tokyo was powered by one massive Miko generator until the kaiju came out of the sea and trashed the entire city. There's a huge battle involving several kaiju, several Templars. They tried to evacuate, but really when you've got a 200-foot tall robot fighting a 200-foot tall lizard, evacuation becomes kind of difficult, because which direction do you go in? And also what we have in the game is we've got other forces. We've got lesser forces. So the humans, for example, can see a kaiju coming. The problem is, how do you get your 200-foot tall robot to the right place to stop it quickly? Well, you don't. It's going to take a bit of time to deploy that. So what they have is what they call shield forces, and that are more like what we would call conventional battle tanks, power armour, static defences, guns, drones.
And these guys are just going there trying to slow it down as much as possible.
Exactly. Their job is not to stop a kaiju. It is literally just to slow it down until your Templars get deployed. The kaiju have got something similar, which were called Oni, which is the old Japanese word for demon. Because Neo Tokyo was the first city to be attacked by them, the name just kind of stuck. Now, Oni are small in 6mm scale, but for example, one of them looks like a giant lizard, which sets out a massive AMP pulse called a Bombo Chicken, which is a literal translation from Japanese of bomb chicken. Now, in game, that's about 20-22mm high, which is like that size. But if you imagine in real life, that's a 20-25 foot tall lizard monster, which has got an ability to knock out technology within several hundred yards.
It's a pretty scary prospect.
Yeah, it's highly carnivorous, highly aggressive, and the more it fights and builds up the aggression, the more of an EMP wave it gives out. Now, you combine that with the fact that 90% of the population are wired cybernetically, and you have a problem. Because, you're thinking, I'm absolutely fine. Oh, wait a minute.
The pacemaker's gone.
The pacemaker's gone. My central nervous system just switched off because I had upgrades. I can't see anything because my cybernetic eyes don't work anymore. So if you're in a high-tech city and one of these things runs through the middle giving off an EMP...
It just wrecks the whole city just by being there.
By being there.
It literally completely turns the infrastructure off. Yeah,
completely. Nothing works whatsoever. You can't pull people out because your ambulances just fell out of the sky. Your flying ambulance doesn't fly anymore. Your flying cars are dropping like birds, and every one of them is a 5-ton missile you're just dropping on the population below. So whenever kaiju and Oni turn up in a city, it just turns to hell completely. It's really, really bad news. And the game is going to reflect that. So you're going to have massive human forces of power armor, tanks and infantry just there to die and slow these forces down long enough till your Templars come up. And your Templars are absolutely beautiful. They're hundreds of feet tall, bristling with weapon systems, the ultimate human killing machine.
Is this why you made the choice to switch it all to about 6mm so it can actually fit on the board? Exactly.
We toyed with a few different scales. We looked at 15mm because we thought 15 was a nice scale. You got a lot of detail in there. Unfortunately, we calculated that the smaller kaiju would be about 1 to 1.5 feet tall. So you're talking about that size for a smallish kaiju in 15mm.
And the
Templars a little bit taller.
Yeah, so that's a massive lump of plastic.
Yeah, so we decided to go with 6mm, and even in 6mm, call them smaller, but you're looking at roughly this height. You're looking at 150mm for a Templar.
Much more manageable, though.
That's approximately about the size of a Warlord Titan from
it's pretty much
That's a fair old size then. Still,
the first Templar and the first Kaiju, we've got them rendered. They'll be getting printed in the next few weeks. The Templar's gorgeous. It's got a very Japanese aesthetic. Battle for Neo Tokyo. It looks absolutely stunning. It looks almost like a high-tech samurai. And it comes with a naginata, the big long spear. So we toyed with the katana, but we thought, you know what? If you're going toe-to-toe with a kaiju, you're going to want a bit of distance.
Yeah. You don't want it eating your face.
Yeah, if that thing gets in close, you're in trouble. So the kaiju itself is slightly shorter than the Templar. You're still looking at 130mm, but it's a lot bulkier. I mean, this thing's got twice the mass. So it's an absolute beast. So everything that Core has been producing so far, we've got gunships, we've got APCs, we've got land trains, we've got all sorts of military stuff and civilian, is coming out in 6mm as well as 50 and 32 purely so that you can drop it straight into the Kaiju game. So if you can imagine, the Kaiju will pick up the taxi and hurl it across the battlefield. It'll kick ground cars out of the way and stomp on them without even paying any attention whatsoever.
Yeah,
So,
because you're talking something around about the 80, 90, 200 to well over 100 tons
yeah.
of muscle.
Well, probably thousands of tons of muscle, the Kaiju.
Yeah.
Especially the first one, which is armour plated. It's a polite way of putting it. This thing's just, you don't bother shooting at the armour plates. There's just no point. If you get anything smaller than a nuke, you just upset it.
So what other things we want to cover in the fluff as well? I know we've gone back onto the size of the models and everything, but what other story?
I remember you told us something about Houston.
Yes. We've written a lot of background. There's a small team who's been working on this for a few months now. In fact, probably over 12 months now. And we've written a lot of background. Now, one of the backgrounds is Texas seceded from the rest of the United States. Again. Because America had a lot of problems with Kaiju hitting them from the Pacific and Atlantic, both sides. So the Texans, have been upright. They like their guns. They thought, we're going to start our own Templar program. They brought out the Texas Rangers. So Houston built up probably the largest independent military force on the planet. This rivaled some of the mega corporations, the absolute beasts. But all this seemed to do was attract more and more Kaiju, almost like they set off a giant beat stick. It was like hitting a wasp's nest. More and more Kaiju came pouring out and hit Texas basically from all sides. So there was a massive battle. The battle for Texas lasted several weeks. The dust settled down. There were dozens of dead Kaiju. Most of Texas was gone. It was a desolate wasteland. They pretty much levelled the entire of Texas. So the Texans thought, okay, we need some more building land. Mexicans aren't doing a great deal with that there. And they annexed a huge chunk of Mexico. Now, this was under the protest of the Mexican government, who were like, hey guys, come on, But unfortunately, the Mexicans had lots of conventional forces and no Templars. Yeah. That could only end one way. It was a very one-sided battle, and a huge chunk of Mexico was annexed by the Texans. So the Texans went about bringing it up to late 21st century standards. They brought in cyberware. They increased it. They brought in more Miko generators. They were building the biggest fortress the world had ever seen. Again. And then again, the whole Kaiju came boiling up, and it's almost like they had a grudge against the Texans, almost, because this was the battle for Texas 2, and it didn't go any better than the first battle. When the dust settled down, there was only a few dozen Texas Rangers were left alive with their Templars. Their entire infrastructure was gone. A huge chunk of Mexico was gone. This was horrendous. This turned Texas and north of Mexico basically into a desolate post-apocalyptic wasteland. So at this point, the remaining Texans swore a blood feud against all Kaiju and essentially have started to hire themselves out, almost like mercenary forces. The only proviso is they will only help you fight if there's a pretty good chance Kaiju are going to turn up. So humans can't always predict when Kaiju are coming, but the Texans will turn up and they will help anyone who's got a Kaiju problem or an Oni problem. They will go in there and they will fight just purely for the love of Texas, because Texas is no more. Yeah. It's pretty much gone. It got eaten by dozens of Kaiju. Some of the biggest Kaiju ever seen on Earth all hit Texas and north of Mexico.
Will the Texas Rangers be getting their own version of the model?
They will do eventually. Now, with the models, there's two types of Templars, if you like, loosely. There's 5 or 6 classifications from Alpha, which are the biggest, Beta, Delta, so on and so forth, all the way working their way down. The tiny ones are only a few hundred tons each, and they're the little babies, they're the little small ones. The bigger ones, the Alphas and Betas, every one of them is handcrafted. It's a work of art. There's no such thing as a production line Alpha or Beta level Templar, because it just takes too many resources. However, Delta, Gamma, Epsilon downwards tend to be production versions. So what you'll find is a mega corporation will bring out a 500-ton robotic chassis, and it will sell it. It'll sell it to Japan, it'll sell it to Texas, it'll sell it to the UK, whoever. It will say, there you go, there's a bare chassis. It's a low level, but it comes with all the systems. It's got its generator system in place. It's got armour plating. However, you can customise the armour plating. You can build that Templar to look like what you want it to look like. It's modular, so you can basically bolt on any weapon system you like.
That's cool.
The idea is that these nations and these countries and other corporations, in fact, will then buy the smaller chassis and they will adapt them to what they need. So, for example, the Texas Rangers have really rugged, smaller chassis with fairly simple weapon systems on board, but they're very flexible. They're designed for simplicity so they can take on a multitude of different Kaiju in a multitude of different environments. you've got other nations will stylize them to make them look. So, for example, the Ichigo is the first Japanese beta class.
Yeah.
It's an absolute beast. It's beautiful, but it definitely looks samurai. It has got a look to it. If you got an Ichigo hull and you sold it to the UK, for example, they would probably plate this up looking maybe more like a British soldier or more like an armoured knight. So when you look at the UK and the Western European Templars, they have got a very knightly aesthetic, almost like Gothic plate mail.
Yeah.
The American ones are very high tech. The Japanese ones are very Oriental samurai looking.
Make a lot of diversity on the board.
So the stylisation of the Templars themselves are actually largely based on the culture where the Templars based.
Exactly. They're based from the nationality and culture. That's partly because that's what the people are comfortable with, but it's also because the governments and the corporations that run these countries now want people to buy in. You're completely safe. Look, we've got the armoured knight. We've got a beta class armoured knight with a claymore weapon system there. So the UK is safe as houses. If you live in Birmingham conglomerate, you get nothing to fear from any kaiju turning up, because look, we've got half a dozen of them patrolling the streets.
And we're also sort of a rallying point as well.
Yeah,
it's like people are going to be more likely to feel connected.
They will buy into them, they will believe in them, and they'll also help pay for them. War bonds, yeah, exactly. So if you hark back to like World War II, where towns and cities and even villages would buy a tank or an armoured vehicle or an aircraft, and they got really behind this, because look, there's the Spitfire that we paid for. You know, all you guys rallied round, and look what we've done for the war effort. The corporations and the governments have just rolled this out, but on a bigger scale. Yeah. So you will actually have, for example, the Manchester is an Alpha class knight Templar, but it was paid for by the people of Manchester. So they know that that's patrolling the streets because they paid for it, and they feel safe at night. Because look, how can they be in danger? Look at the Manchester; it's an absolute beast of a Templar. There's no kaiju going to be able to go toe to toe with that. Yeah. Obviously, like you've seen the adverts. You know the adverts on TV? This thing's unbeatable. So yes, every nation, town, village, all the way upwards and downwards buys into the whole advertising culture. Yeah. And because you've got cyberware, this goes right into your brain. There's CGI images of your chosen Templar fighting against a range of kaiju, and it won every single fight. Where did those fights take place? Yeah, down south somewhere. Yeah, that was actual footage of, not CGI at all, actual footage, yeah. You can trust us, you know, we're the government, of course. So the whole background in the world is a very dark and grim place, but advertising has got a tremendous amount of power, and that is why each of the Templars have this national identity, and also means that when we start to expand past initial release, you have a German faction, French faction, Australian, you know, you can tailor your forces to look more aesthetically like what you want them to look like.
Sounds interesting.
So yeah, we're hoping so. Yeah, it's got a lot of potential out there. So the initial one will be the Battle for Neo Tokyo, which is an Ichigo class Templar, which we'll show images of. We pass those to Dodge.
I'll put those around there somewhere.
We're going to have a few of those images. And it's fighting against the first of the Kaiju, which is a giant turtle Kaiju, which is an absolute armour-plated beast.
I love the look of that model.
It does look really cool.
It's absolutely gorgeous. So the two of them are what kicked off a lot of the major Kaiju events. Huge battle. The level half of Neo Tokyo just gets flattened entirely. Millions of people lose their lives. And that's the first battlefield that we're going to step into. So when we do the starter game, it will have two starter factions. You'll have the Ichigo with all the APCs and some aircraft and some drones and some powered armoured infantry. That's your shield forces and the Templar. And up against them, the opposing lineup will be this giant turtle Kaiju, which is horrendous looking beast, and you'll also have a whole scattering of smaller Oni. Okay, smaller on 6mm scale is kind of comparative. You know, if you calculate it up, they're all 20 or 30 foot tall. But there's even some swarms that we're working on at the moment. So you'll have swarms of Oni cleansing streaks of anything they find.
That's like interesting.
Like a swarm of locusts sort of thing.
Like a swarm of locusts, yeah. Exactly, cool. Yeah. Just everything. And there's whole different, these multitudes of different levels to the game. You could play it as like a normal 6mm skirmish war game. You don't even bother putting the big beasties and the big robots in. Yeah. You could just play it as like an epic type game, tanks versus infantry or whatever. Or who wants to do that? You want to drop in giant robots that walk through skyscrapers.
Yeah, too right.
What kind of size map would this be played on board? Sorry,
at least a 4x4. Because we want the ranges in the game have to be quite a good range. Yeah. So, for example, VTOLs have two types of movement. most aircraft have got VTOL mode because it's 50, 60 years in the future. So, for example, a helicopter gunship comes on, it can either use combat speed, which will allow it to move maybe 12, 18 inches, but fire all its weapon systems, so it can hop around where it needs to be, or it can use full speed, which where it can't interact, it can't use its weapon systems, but you can replace it anywhere on the tabletop. Because you talk about a helicopter going at 200 or 300 miles an hour, you know, a 48-inch table becomes kind of a moot point. So the speeds of the units will reflect that. So you'll have helicopter gunships and flying cars dotting around the table, bouncing about all over the place. You'll have swarms of Oni climbing up buildings like spiders and launching themselves off them, dropping helicopters out of the sky. Or you'll have smaller 25, 30 foot tall Onis picking up cars and throwing them at helicopters to drop them out of the sky.
You'll have some terrain on these boards as well?
Yep, we'll have lots of terrain. We're working on cityscapes at the moment. Listen, we've contacted a couple of companies who are helping us with some cityscapes, which is fantastic. And you'll also be covered in carpets of cars, vehicles, will all be there, but they'll all have a part in the game. You know, if you want your Oni to pick up and throw a car, you can pick up and throw a car.
The cars you're going to have on the board are just not decorative or display. So it's not like 40k where you're throwing down terrain. It's like it's actually interactive.
The terrain will be interactive. So, for example, you could, if you've got a Templar stood in front of you and you're thinking, actually, you know what, that Templar's in pretty good condition, my Kaiju's full of holes, push a building on him. That's guaranteed to give him a bad day. Drop a skyscraper on that Templar, and you know it might not put him out of the game, but it's certainly going to slow him down somewhat. And that might be all you need to really then give you time to get your forces in place. Other stuff you've got, for example, with some of the Oni will eat terrain and scenery. They're almost got like a parasite quality, and they will go back to the Kaiju and they will repair the Kaiju's armour. So you can imagine these things are eating cars, they're breaking down any metal or anything they can find, they're digesting it and their guts till it becomes molten.
The medics of the game.
Yeah, they're the Kaiju medics. They will go back to the Kaiju and they will vomit forth metal and patch up holes in the Kaiju's armour plating.
Interesting, that sounds really cool.
So they will destroy scenery as they go, but then if they take it back again, that can help buff your Kaiju.
Right, so it's going to be very important to kill them before they start to help the big guys out.
Yeah, so everything's going to have problems on both sides. You'll have choices to think, do I want to handle him first? Oh, wait a minute, they're going to be a complete nuisance and they'll buff him. Oh, right, wait a minute, I can't take out them both. One of them's going to have to get through. So you're going to have choices at every level of the game where you're going to have to kind of make a considered risk. Yeah. And it's also going to look absolutely epically cool because you can have whole armies and swarms and giant beasties trashing cities.
Very cool.
I'm just wondering how these models will stand. Are you going to be able to stand on the skyscrapers, or are they just going to be freestanding? That's one of the things I was curious about.
Some of them will be freestanding, but some of the beasties will be able to move up buildings. Because again, if you watch Kaiju movies, that's one of the things is they can climb up vertical surfaces. Yeah. So, for example, there's a slightly spidery Oni that we're working on at the moment. It's like a nightmare. It's like a spider right out of a nightmare, but it will be able to climb vertical surfaces. Yeah. You will have climbers and flyers. So even though they are beasties, some of them will come with flight, and some of them will just be able to climb up to high surfaces and then jump off. So, for example, if you've got your helicopter gunships swooping in, you know, maybe half height of the city, and there's a whole big bunch of beasties on that, they'll be able to jump off and engage your helicopter gunship to drop them out of the sky.
That's cool.
Sounds interesting. Looking forward to seeing some more. Some more stuff what you've got coming up.
Yeah, well, we've got the renders already for the first couple of Kaiju. We've got some of the Oni, and we've got a massive amount of the human faction stuff already.
Those renders for the big beasts and everything, we're going to put those in part 3, so you guys better keep watching for that one.
Well, if we're really lucky, we'll have some colorized images, and if we're really, really lucky, we might even have the first 3D prints.
That would be awesome.
You heard it here first, guys.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you for watching us up to this point. Obviously, huge thank you to Mark for coming over and indulging us in his new game and his new models.
All that fluff as well.
Yeah, the fluff.
My pleasure.
Definitely.
I'm just wondering, are you going to put the fluff in rulebooks as well?
Yes, the first rulebook will be A5. Bit of fluff, bit of artwork, some nice artwork being worked on at the moment.
Expand that over time.
But yeah, what we're hoping is maybe like once we've got a year to under our belt, we'll refine the rules a little bit and we'll bring out a big full colour A4 hardback glossy type.
Get the cool stuff, get the cool stuff in there.
But baby steps.
Yeah, baby steps. So thank you for watching, guys. We've got a few thank yous to make as always.
Yep, a big thank yous to our patrons who help support this channel. We've got Cliff Leonard, Joe Spearpoint, Laurel Tarley, Ludwig Hofbauer, Warren Bunsdon, Danny Wack and Chris Lindquist. If you want to join us on Patreon as well and help donate to the channel, links are in the description, as well as the links for Mark's project, his Kickstarter, and any other links he wants to send me. So you'll be able to find out more information direct from Mark, hopefully, or from his social media.
Yeah, absolutely.
So thank you guys, thank you for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one. Take care.
Cheers.